Hey there, my name is Wyatt. I am the owner and operator of B&G Hobby Shop, and I would like to show you guys how to sell Lego, specifically using Bricklink, BrickOwl, and eBay. So starting off, there's two types of Lego that you can sell. There's new and used. Of course, new is straight out of the box, and preferably you're the first person that is taking it out of the box, or at least out of the packaging, the plastic bags. I guess they're switching over to paper bags, but out of the bags, just to verify that it is new, because you don't want to falsely advertise stuff like that. And then parting out is typically what happens when you open a new set. So that is taking, so there's like 5 or 6 or however many pieces that make up this individual pawn or whatever this is here, a rook. Um, but there's 5 or 6 pieces. You would sell all these pieces individually, and a different person could buy each one of these pieces from your store. And so yeah, you sell all your parts. This set doesn't come in with any minifigures, but some sets do. And even then, you can part out the minifigure. You can sell the head separate from the torso, separate from the legs, or you can keep them all together. And then you can also sell the box by itself, as long as make sure you don't damage it when you're opening it, and the instructions. And I will say they don't sell it quite as often, but it is a good way to make back some money over time. They just will not sell very quickly. And then, of course, you can sell the set sealed in box. I typically don't recommend that, though, unless you're using this as an investment, because otherwise you are directly competing with Lego themselves and their website and with big box stores. So it's hard to do, but I don't recommend it because you're likely not going to win in that situation. They likely have higher margins that they can eat into than you. And of course, there's used, so buying it from Facebook Marketplace, eBay, bulk buys. They can be smaller than this. It doesn't have to be a bunch of big tubs. It can be a pound or so. But typically, the larger the purchases, the cheaper you can get it for per piece. And so, yeah, typically in bulk, it has much higher margins because, of course, the person who's selling it just wants to get rid of it. They likely don't know what's inside it or how much it's worth or anything like that. But that does require more work, more time, because you have to likely wash it. Usually it's dusty or there's grime or it's dirty work, but you have to wash it. And then you have to, typically there's 2 sorts that most people do, an A sort and a B sort. We won't be getting into that in this video, but typically it has to go through at least 1 or 2 sorting processes to finally get to a point where you can add the pieces to your store. So it's a long and not so fun process compared to parting out, where everything is pretty much set up for you. And I will make a future video on that as well, on how to do that and how easy it is. So moving along, what to sell. So you can easily, kind of separate this into 3 parts. So yeah, parts, minifigures, and sets. So parts are, the pieces themselves, typically looking like this or something similar to this, and they're easy to get and they sell often. And because they're easy to get, they have much lower margins. You only sell these, like this specific piece is probably only worth 2 or 3 cents, and you're probably only making a cent or 2 margin, or a cent and a half margin. But because it sells so often, you can sell 100 of these fairly easily, as long as it's a good price, compared to the market, and you have other stuff that people can buy as well. But if you sell 100 of these, you're starting to make up that money again. You're not necessarily looking for individual items to make a lot of money for you. It's about, the collective. And so, yeah, lower margins, and then there's more space to store it because you have a lot more that you need to sell in order to make that profit. And then minifigures, and I have 2 cans here because it's very subjective to what specific minifigure you're talking about. So they can have high margins, and they often do, but I put in can because I don't want to falsely lead someone into making a purchase where they don't make any profit off of it. And it's always good to do research about what you're buying before you do, and that, so you can see if it's very desirable, because some of those minifigures they're worth Some of them are worth thousands of dollars, and someone might not know what they have and sell it to you for like $2. So it can be very profitable, and that's why there's a lot of competition, not necessarily in selling, which there is, but in buying, because there's a lot of people who want it for their own collections, not even to resell. So if you see it cheap, you see a very desirable minifigure for cheap, the likelihood is that there is at least one or two other people that also saw that and are also trying to get their hands on it. And again, some of them are worth very little. The town and city minifigures often aren't worth that much because they don't have names. They're not, to a specific title or a licensing agreement. Like, it's not Star Wars, it's not Marvel, it's not anything like that. So they're not worth as much. And then there's sets, of course, and these you can sell like with or without the box. So you can sell these new or used. So if you have all these parts, but you already built it and you just want to sell the whole thing together, you can do that, and you can sell the whole set used, but you don't have to include the box most times or the instructions. As long as all those pieces are there, you should be fine. But if you want to keep it sealed in box, keep the tape on there and everything, these are best for investments long term, and they almost always increase in value. I've got a website I want to show you guys real quick here in a second, but of course they have a high initial cost because you are paying retail price for these sets most of the time. Even if they are on sale, you likely will get it at most 50%, and that's if you're lucky. And they're slower moving because oftentimes they do cost more, and that means there's less people that are willing to buy it. But about that website I was talking about, it's called brickeconomy.com. And so these are some of the sets that have recently retired, so they're no longer being made by Lego, and most of them aren't available on shelves at retailers like Target or Walmart or even Amazon. So you can see here that the annual growth of this set, which granted it was only $5, but now it's worth $7.99. So it's up 60%, annual growth 25%. That's the stock market's pretty bullish right now, so that's about meeting the stock market. But on a down year, that is beating the stock market. And there's other sets that only goes up 4%. This one's gone down $5. It's not a guarantee, but then there's other ones like this. It's gone up 100%. Annual growth, I think this one's a little bit off just because of how recently, October, how recently this retired. So this annual growth isn't quite accurate. This is a little more accurate. That 100% growth, $20 compared to $10. And there's some of these. This retired in 2022, and it's worth, or this came out in 22, sorry. It retired this April. And the growth, if it's retired within a year, I like to not look at that annual growth because oftentimes it is inaccurate. But the growth here, 72% since April, is pretty bonkers. And like I said, there's some retired in March. This has gone down in value. So it is not a guarantee. It's always good to do your research, and there are plenty of YouTube videos that other people make telling you which ones they think could go up in value. I will say these Bricklink exclusive sets almost always go up in value. I would always recommend buying them. They are kind of expensive though at retail. $90, $280, $210. They're kind of expensive, but they do always go up in value, is what I've found at least. Okay, that's enough from Brick Economy. And I think we can move on to the next page. So where to get inventory? Like I said, Facebook Marketplace, eBay are best for used, just third-party sellers, or just, random parents that want to get rid of their kids' stuff. They got too much, or some kid, college kids, old collection that they want to get rid of and pay for college. Facebook Marketplace, eBay, best places to go. Walmart, Target are the best places to go if you want to find retail sets that are on discount. So they often have discounts up to 30% or so, fairly often, I'll say. Lego.com, they rarely, sometimes they have discounts, but it isn't quite as common. But they do have, I'll pull it up here, is a bricks, or pick a brick I believe that's what they call it. Bricks and pieces, pick a brick. So on this web page, they have a ton of different pieces that they make that you can buy directly from them. And so these ones that have bestseller under it, I believe they're warehoused in the US, and so they'll be shipped much quicker. And then it might be a little more difficult to find one that isn't. So we'll just go to a random thing here. Let's say we want this connector in this color. It is not available within the US. Well, you can still buy it, but they have to ship it all the way from Denmark, and that takes a while. Usually up to a month. But let's say you want to buy a couple of sets, and you also see here that you can sell these crocodiles on your website or on Bricklink or BrickOwl or eBay or whatever. You can sell it, the market price is $3. So you can make $2 profit without, fees and stuff. Roughly $2 profit just from buying these from their website and then reselling it on your own. So it can be worth it to buy from Lego directly, depending on what you're trying to do. Oops. Go back up here. Barnes & Noble, I like to put them on my list because they'll have retired sets, like the ones I was showing you earlier, much after, Walmart, Target, and Lego run out of stock. Because a lot of people don't check Barnes & Noble, for Lego. So you can find those sets. Granted, Barnes & Noble almost never has sales. So you will pay full MSRP retail price. But at that point, oftentimes you can find sets that are worth, that have gone up 20% in value, and they're still available at Barnes & Noble. I've found those before. But granted, again, a lot of times it costs more to get into sealed sets. Okay, and then I already covered eBay, so we'll move on. Where to sell? There's big three, I like to say, Bricklink, BrickOwl, eBay, for selling Lego. Individual pieces. If you're going to sell sealed sets, I would recommend using eBay because it has the largest market for sealed sets. Bricklink, I would say, is the second biggest, and you can do it on Bricklink, but there isn't as many people. Plus, you can post pictures a lot easier to eBay about conditions, say like a corner is damaged or something like that. You can easily show buyers that the corner's damaged rather than putting in a description on Bricklink. So if you're going to sell sealed sets, I would recommend eBay. But going back up here to Bricklink, it has low fees. We'll get to that. A large buyer pool, so it has a very large amount of buyers on the website. It doesn't have an algorithm, which is really nice when you're just starting your store, because it recommends, based on what the customer searches. It's typically lowest price first, and then it goes to the higher price towards the bottom. But that lower price will be at the top. So if you have the lowest price, you can be at the top. You can be the first thing that people see. Or even if you're like third, you'll be one of the top 3 that people will see. There's no algorithm like in eBay where you have to get the pictures just right and the description and all that kind of stuff. And Bricklink has a catalog, so every piece, or almost every piece that Lego makes, there's a page on Bricklink for that piece. So you can find basically whatever, especially everything at retail right now, there's a page for it on Bricklink. Or there will be soon if the set just released. The cons of Bricklink, it has the cheapest market price just because there's a lot of sellers on here. You'll often find that people need to go down in price to be, at the top. So this will often have the cheapest market price. You're still in the profit though, don't worry. At least on most things, depending on what you bought and if you did your research on it first. And then these fees, 3% plus processing. So this processing that Bricklink and BrickOwl have down here, Bricklink and BrickOwl require third-party payment processing. I have more info on the next slide. So there are additional fees on top of this that don't go directly to these places. That's why I kept them separate. But unlike eBay, the processing for the payments is not done on the website. I guess it can be done on the website, but it's not. The payment doesn't go to BrickOwl and it doesn't go to Bricklink. It goes to that third party. So moving on, BrickOwl, sorry, has low fees again, 2.5%, which is the lowest among all of them, but it has the smallest buyer pool. So I do believe that 0.5% is well worth it on Bricklink because there are just so many more people to buy. Again, it doesn't have an algorithm. It's set up very similarly to Bricklink and has that catalog. Granted, its catalog isn't as big because it hasn't been around as long. And then on to eBay. It has the largest buyer pool. I think everyone's heard of eBay. And buyers pay more just because there's so many people that demand is much higher than, say, on Bricklink. So on a supply and demand chart, you know, your customers, there's a higher supply, but there's a much higher demand. So that final price is much higher. So buyers do pay more. You know, there'll be a minifigure that you can pay $5 less for on Bricklink than eBay. But you know, it still sells. There are people who will buy it for $5 more on eBay than on BrickOwl. Cons, high fees at 13.25%, even with the processing fees, is very high. No catalog. You have to post everything yourself, describe everything yourself. And if you want to sell individual pieces, it's almost impossible to do on eBay. You could do groups of pieces, but selling an individual piece is very difficult unless it's a very like specialty type piece. And it does have that algorithm, so you have to make sure your description and your pictures are good, and so people will see it. And there's this note down here. I'm not going to read it out loud just because it's not that important. You can pause if you want to and read it. But moving on, payment processors. So there's two big ones, PayPal and Stripe. PayPal takes a higher fee, 3.49% plus 50 cents per transaction. It is very popular. Most buyers use it. But again, it has that higher fee. So it's always good to also have Stripe enabled on your website on Bricklink and BrickOwl. Yeah, because its fee is 2.9% and only 30 cents per transaction. So it has that lower cost. And another positive, which you might want to advertise to your buyers, you know, to get that lower fee, is that it does not require buyers to sign in, unlike PayPal. I believe PayPal requires you to sign in, you know, and attach your credit card or debit card or whatever. When Stripe, all you have to do is put in your card information. You don't have to make an account if you don't want to. And so, yeah, that's it for this video. Next video, I plan on talking about mailing. Make sure to subscribe to see that next video, and I'll see you then.